ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضاه. In this lesson we're going to cover الدرس الثامن عشر, the 18th lesson. And in this lesson we're going to cover some very important topics and concepts, inshallah. So we're going to explain using the book for the meantime before we start reading. So we mentioned previously on numerous occasions that nouns are divided into three types in terms of number. And they are, we have the noun which is singular, mufrad. Then we have the noun which is muthanna, which indicates dual, two of something. And then if it's more than two, we have jam'un. So mufradun, singular, muthanna, if it's dual, two, jam'un, more than two. So with the singular noun, this was covered from lessons 1 to 13, we can say. From lessons 1 to 12, actually. Lessons 1 to 12, we were looking and speaking about mufrad nouns, the singular nouns. Then from lesson 13 until the last lesson, which was lesson 17, we were focusing on plural forms. In this lesson, lesson 18, we're going to learn how to form the muthanna, the dual. Okay, so how do we form the dual form? The dual form is pretty straightforward, inshallah. We take it from the mufrad. We take the mufrad and then we either add alif and noon or ya and noon. The letter before the alif needs to take a fatha. The letter before the ya, which is sakina, is going to take a fatha also. And the noon is going to take a kasra in both cases. So it's either going to be having the sound ani or aini. Ani or aini. It's going to sound like that. Ani or aini. We add alif and noon if it's marfu'. And what the sign of it being marfu' is the alif alone. The alif. Okay. The alif is what represents الرفع. This is what shows that this word is marfu'. And if the muthanna is majroor or mansoob, we use this form, ya and nun. So this form is used when it's mansoob and majroor. Okay, so let's give some examples. So let's say we want to say 2 pens. What's the mufrad of pen? The singular is qalamun. So we have qalamun. Qalamun. Okay. So if we want to make it marfu', say a sentence that has 2 pens within it. For example, I want to say I have 2 pens. Indi, 2 pens. Indi is dharf. The dharf here has come forward and this is the shibhu jumla. So the 2 pens is going to be the mubtada muakhar. The mubtada muakhar, mubtada is marfu'. So we're going to use this form. Okay. The dhammatain is going to be removed and the meme is going to take a fatha. Okay. So qala, meme is going to take a fatha. And then I'm going to add the alif and the noon with a kasra. Qalamani. So I would say indi qalamani. I have 2 pens. This is my khabar muqaddam. This is my mubtada muakhar. This is marfu' and the sign of it being marfu' is the alif. So that's when it's marfu'. Or I could say maybe dhahaba. Dhahaba means to go, right? So the fa'il is always marfu'. So I want to say 2 students went. 2 students went. The singular for student, the noun is talibun. Talibun. To make it marfu', I remove the tanween and place a fatha on the ba. And then add alif and noon in this case because I want to make it marfu'. This is the fa'il. So I would say talibani. ذهب طالبان إلى المسجد. 2 students went to the masjid and so on. Okay, if it's mansoob and majroor, also we do the same thing. We take off the tanween at the end of the word and we make it have a fatha. The last letter takes a fatha before adding the ya and nun. So example of it being mansoob, I would say uhibbu, because we've covered this verb. Uhibbu means to love. Uhibbu, I love. I'm going to say al-walid. Al-walid means father. Al-walidu means father. This is singular. But when you want to say parents, you use this for the two parents. It won't mean two fathers, it will mean mother and father in this case, if you make this muthanna. Al-walidu, so what I do is I give the dal a fatha. So I would say al-wali, al-wali, da, and then I'm not going to add alif, I'm going to add ya and nun because it's mansoob in this case. These are the people that I love. Uhibbu al-walidaini. Uhibbu al-walidaini. Uhibbu al-walidaini. Okay. Uhibbu al-walidaini. Or another example, qara'tu. Qara'tu means I read. I read. I'm going to say kitabaini. Kitabun, kitabaini means I read two books. This is also mansoob. This is the object of the sentence. I read two books. I love the two parents. Example of it being majroor, I would say sallamtu. Sallama means to give salam. It means to give salam. So sallamtu. Sallamtu ala. I gave salam to two men. How would I say two men? Rajulun will become rajulayni. I use this form because it's coming after ala. So I use the majroor form which has to have the ya. Ala rajulayni. Rajulayni. Sallamtu ala rajulayni. I gave salam to two men. Or if I want to say to two Muslims, I would say salamtu, I gave salam to muslimaini. Muslimaini, I gave salam to two Muslims. So in this case, it's majroor. And this is majroor. And the sign of it being majroor is the ya. This is the alama. This is the sign that this word is majroor. We know that it's majroor here and it's mansoob here because of its position in the sentence. So the ya is coming to show two things, mansoob and majroor. That is majroor and mansoob. And so the difference, the way to tell the difference is its position in the sentence. So in this case, it's coming as the object of the sentence. So it can't be majroor, it has to be mansoob. In this case, it's coming after harf jar. So it can't be mansoob, it has to be majroor. And so on. But with alif, when the alif is there, there's only one case, and that's marfu. So there's no confusion. طيب. Once we've understood that, now we need to bear in mind two things. There's two important things. The first one is that when we have the muthanna with a ya and nun, this can be confused for the jam' mudhakkar salim. Remember the jam' mudhakkar salim? We said that we take it from the mufrad. So for example, muslimun. If we have muslimun, how do we make the jam' mudhakkar salim? We either add waw and nun, so it becomes muslimuna, or we add ya and nun, so it becomes muslimina. The waw and nun, before the waw, the letter before it takes a dhamma, the letter before the ya takes a kasra. So muslimuna, muslimina. Muslimuna, many Muslims, muslimina, many Muslims. The meaning is not affected, it's just that its case ending changes. Muslimuna, muslimina. Okay, when it has the ya and nun now, it can be confused for the muthanna when it has a ya and nun. So how do we tell the difference? How do we tell the difference between the two? Okay, let me write muslimina. Muslimina. And let me write muslimaini. Okay, the way to tell the difference is by looking at the haraka of the letter before the ya and the letter after the ya. So the letter before the ya and the noon. The letter after the ya is going to be the noon. If it's fatha, then kasra, then it's muthanna. So this is muthanna. This is how we tell the difference. If it's fatha, kasra, it's muthanna. And if it's the opposite, kasra, fatha, this is jam' mudhakkar salim. Jam' mudhakkar salim. Okay, this is how we tell the difference. Muslimina means a group of Muslims. Jam' mudhakkar salim in the mansub or majroor case. Muslimaini means two Muslims, and this is in the majroor or mansub case. So in both of them, the ya comes for two cases to represent the word being majroor and mansub. So this is the first note. The second note that we need to bear in mind is when we spoke about the jam' mu'annath salim, creating the jam' mu'annath salim, we said if we had muslimatun, so we have muslimatun. To get the jam' mu'annath salim, if the singular has ta marbuta, what do we do with the ta marbuta? We remove it, we take it off. So we have muslim, and then we add the alif and ta to the meme. So we've removed the ta marbuta, we add it, so it becomes muslimatun. So this is with jam' mu'annath salim. But with the muthanna, we keep the ta marbuta. When we add the alif and noon and the ya and noon, we don't omit the ta marbuta. So if we had, for example, ghurfatun, which means room, I want to say two rooms, I would say ghurfa tani with the ta, but the ta opens up now. I would say ghurfatani, or that's if it's in the marfu case. If it's in the majrur or mansub case, I would say ghurfatayni. Okay, so these are the two important notes that we've added when explaining the muthanna, so that it's not confusing. So the whole point of lesson 18 is focusing on the muthanna. So we've spoken now how to create the muthanna. The muthanna, the dual form, which is special to the Arabic language. In English, we don't have a noun to represent two specifically. We have to say two people, two pens. We have to add the number two. But in Arabic, we have a special noun or a special form that represents the dual form. Okay, so we know how to create the dual form now, inshallah. We just have to add alif and noon, or ya and noon. So we know when to add alif and noon, that's when it's marfu. When we add ya and noon, when it's mansub or majur. طيب. There's also other things which are related to the muthanna that we learn in this lesson. Other things related to the muthanna that we learn in this lesson. From those is the dhamir. The dhamir, huma, which represents the two of them, is going to come in this lesson. But because the author doesn't bring the other dhamir, which is antuma for mukhatab, when you're addressing, he only brings huma, we are going to cover all of the dhama'ir in this lesson, inshallah. So the dhama'ir, the pronouns, let's write dhamirun. So we have dhamirun, which means a pronoun. The plural is dhama'iru. Dhama'iru, which is mamnu' min as-sarf. The same reason why dafatiru and fanadiqu are mamnu' min as-sarf, because it comes on mafa'ilu. After the alif, there's two letters which both have vowels. Mafa'ilu. So it's mamnu' min as-sarf. Dhamirun, pronoun. Dhama'iru, pronouns. The pronouns are divided into three main categories. The first category is dhama'ir al-ghaiba, or we can say al-ghaibu. What's a ghaib? Al-ghaib is third person. So we have third person pronouns. Third person noun. Third person pronouns. Then we have al-mukhatab. Al-mukhatabu. Al-mukhatab is second person. So third person, you're speaking about them. Second person, you're speaking to them. You're addressing them. Second person. Then we have al-mutakallim. Al-mutakallim is first person. When you're speaking about yourself. Al-mutakallimu. First person. These are the main three categories of the dhama'ir. And these three categories apply both to the detached and the attached pronouns. Okay. And all of these dhama'ir, they are divided into mudhakkar mu'annath, mudhakkar mu'annath, mudhakkar mu'annath. We have ones for the mudhakkar, ones for the mu'annath, for each of them. And they are also divided into mufrad, which means singular when you're referring to one person, or muthanna, or jam'. Muthanna means dual, jam' means more than two, plural. Okay, so we need to have this table laid out like this. We have to have this table laid out like this. طيب. So here we have the third person pronouns. The third person pronouns, as we just mentioned right now, they're divided into two types. Two types. One's for the mudhakkar and one's for the mu'annath. So we put a line there to separate. So this is the mudhakkar, this is the mu'annath. This is the mudhakkar, this is the mu'annath. This is the mudhakkar and this is the mu'annath. Each one is divided into two in terms of gender. So third person, singular, mudhakkar, we say huwa. Right? We learnt this already. Huwa. Third person, singular, pronoun for masculine is huwa. Third person, singular pronoun for feminine is hiya. Hiya. So we have huwa and hiya. Third person, pronoun for masculine plural was hum. We learnt this already. Third person, pronoun plural for feminine is hunna, meaning they. He, she. Second person, pronoun, singular, for masculine, we say anta. Anta. For feminine, anti. This means you. You're speaking to one male, anta, speaking to one woman, anti. For mukhatab, second person, plural forms for mudhakkar is antum. Antum. For plural feminine, we say antunna. Antum, antunna, in English we translate the same thing. You guys, yani. You guys, a group of males, you guys, a group of females. In English, there's no difference between the word. It's the same for both mudhakkar and mu'annath. Al-mutakallim, the person who is speaking about himself, singular, is ana, if it's masculine, and ana, if it's feminine. So it's the same ones. If it's a group of people speaking about themselves, for masculine, it's nahnu, and for feminine, it's nahnu. Same ones. As we mentioned, the mutakallim, the first person pronouns, whether they are mufrad, muthanna, jam', they are unisex throughout. Okay, now in this lesson, we're going to learn the muthanna. Although the author, he just mentions one, we're going to learn all of them. I'm going to mention all of them. So please pause this video or slow it down so that you have this noted down in your notebook, and note it down neatly so that you can refer back to it and it's easy for you to memorize. For third person, dual, masculine, we say huma. Huma means the two of them. That's for masculine. For feminine, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Huma. The dual forms are exactly the same. Huma means the two of them, means two males, or it can mean two females, or it can mean a man and a woman. So long as there are two and you're speaking about them, it's always going to be huma. 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 If you're speaking to them, then it's antuma. Antuma. If you're speaking to two males, antuma. If you're speaking to two females, antuma again. And if you're speaking to a man and a woman, it's the same dhamir. So all you have to memorize is huma and antuma. Huma is third person, antuma is second person. For first person, we use nahnu. The same ones here. nahnu. Once you get to 2 people, you start using nahnu. 2 and above is nahnu. 2 of us. If you're speaking, 2 people are speaking about themselves, masculines or feminines or mixture, they say nahnu, nahnu, nahnu. So these are all of the detached pronouns that we have covered. We have covered all of them. And in total, you find that there are 12. Minus the repetitions, you find that there are 12. So if you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're not going to count this again, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we're not going to count this again, 10, 11, 12. We're not going to count the repetitions. So minus the repetitions, you are left with 12 dhama'ir. These are the 12 dhama'ir that I am requesting everyone who is watching this lesson to memorize and to also understand what they are referring to. Hopefully the table is easy reference to understand who they're referring to. So that's the second thing that we wanted to mention, the dhama'ir. Okay, and the focus in this lesson is huma, the muthanna, because lesson 18 focuses on the muthanna. The next thing that we wanted to mention also is the asma'ul ishara. The asma'ul ishara, we're going to cover all of them now. The asma'ul ishara, likewise, they are divided similarly into these 3 groups here. So we have mufrad, muthanna, jam'. Okay. So mufrad, muthanna, jam'. Okay, so we're going to discuss the ones that are qareeb first. And obviously they are subdivided into mudhakkar, mu'annath. Mudhakkar, mu'annath. So we have mudhakkar, and mu'annath. So this is mudhakkar and this is mu'annath. طيب. For the mufrad, mudhakkar, we say هذا. When we point out something which is singular, and mudhakkar we say هذا. For the female, feminine object or person, we say هذه, singular, feminine, هذه, هذا and هذه. طيب. For the jam', we have the same ismul ishara for both هذا and هذه, and that is هؤلاء. هؤلاء. This is the plural for هذا and هذه. Only if you're talking about a group of males or females, rational nouns, people. If you're talking about irrational nouns, we covered in the last 2 lessons that irrational nouns are treated as one feminine. So the plural for both هذا and هذه for the jam' of irrational nouns is هذه. So we have 2 plural forms. Either هؤلاء, and this is the plural for both هذا and هذه, but it's only used for rational nouns. Or هذه, plural for هذا and هذه, but this is used for irrational nouns, non-intellectual beings. طيب. So we've covered this. The focus of this table now is to complete the muthanna. The muthanna, if you're pointing out 2 objects, masculine, you say هذان. هذان. What does هذان mean? These 2. So if I had 2 pens now, I would say هذان قلمان. These 2 are pens. هذان قلمان. These 2 are pens. If you're pointing out 2 feminine objects, and this is going to come in the lesson, you say هاتان. هاتان. You're going to say هاتان. What does هاتان mean? These 2 feminine objects. If I had 2 cars, I would say هاتان سيارتان. These 2 are cars. هاتان سيارتان. هاتان بنتان. These 2 are girls. So this is أسماء الإشارة للقريب. We've covered all of them now. هذا هذه means this. هذان هاتان means these 2. هؤلاء and هذه means these. And inshallah we understand how each one is used. Now let's go to the أسماء الإشارة للبعيد. So it's going to be divided in the same way. So مثنى جمع. مفرد مثنى جمع. And each one has the مذكر and mu'annath. So these are the asma al-ishara for things which are far away. If it's singular and masculine, we say ذَلِكَ. If it's singular and it's feminine object, we say tilka. That. In English, we translate it the same way. But in Arabic, we have specific demonstrative pronouns for each. Okay, the plural for if it's intellectual beings, and it's going to apply for both, whether they are mudhakkar or muannath, is one, and that is ulaika. Ulaika is for rational beings. Rational beings. Ulaika. If it's irrational beings, then we use the feminine version because we treat it as one feminine. So we say tilka. So we've covered this already. Now the focus of this lesson is the muthanna. For muthanna, we say dhanika, those two, if they're far away. Dhanika, qalamani, those two are pens. Dhanika, rajulani, those two are men, if they're far away. And if they're far away and they're feminine, we say tanika. Tanika is the feminine of dhanika. Those two are cars. Tanika sayyaratani. Tanika bintani. Tanika madrasatani. Those two are schools. طيب. Final point is the asma al-ishara are all mabni. They're all fixed, with the exception of the muthanna forms for both qarib and ba'id. The muthanna forms, they change. So this alif here is going to change into a ya when it's majroor or mansoob. This alif here is going to turn into a ya when it's majroor or mansoob. This alif here is going to change into a ya when it's majroor or mansoob, and the same with this alif here is going to change when it's majroor or mansoob. So when you see the alif, that means it's marfu'. They're in the marfu' state right now. But to make it into majroor form for hadani, we'd say hadaini. For hatani, we'd say hataini. For dhanika, we'd say dhainika. For tanika, we'd say taynika. Okay, so the muthanna forms for the asma al-ishara, they are declinable, or they are mu'rab. They change. They have a alif when it's marfu' and they have a ya when it's majroor or mansoob. This is very important to bear in mind. As for the dama'ir, they are all mabni. They are fixed without any exceptions. There's no exceptions. The muthanna and the mufrad and the jam', all of them, the detached and the attached forms, all cases, they are going to be mabni. They're fixed. So the exception is only with the asma al-ishara, the muthanna forms. As for the mufrad and the jam', they're always going to be fixed. They're not going to change. It's only the muthanna that's going to change. طيب. So this is also something that we wanted for everyone to note down and keep safe in their notebook so that they can refer back to when revising and memorizing. طيب. The final point that we're going to mention now, the final point that's going to come in this lesson, is the ismul istifham kam. We're going to learn the ismul istifham kam. And this ismul istifham is used to ask about the number of something or the quantity. Asking about number or quantity. And we translate it into English as how much, how many. That's how we translate it to English. And as with all the numbers, they don't really have an essence unless you mention the thing that you're counting in the sentence. So with kam, the thing that you're counting or the thing that you're asking about comes as a noun. And this noun that comes after kam is going to fulfill three conditions. It's going to be mufrad. What does mufrad mean? It means that this word is going to be singular. That's condition number one. Second condition is that this noun is going to be nakira, indefinite. nakira, indefinite. So that's the second condition. The third condition is that this noun is going to be mansubun. Mansub means it ends with fatha or fathatain, and that's the third condition. So for example, if I wanted to ask how many rooms do you have in your house, I would say kam. Ghurfa is the word, right, for rooms. So ghurfa, I'm not going to say ghuraf, the plural. I'm going to use the mufrad. The mufrad is ghurfatun. And I'm not going to give it alif lam because I need it to be nakira. And I'm going to make it mansub. So I would say kam ghurfatan fi baytika, for example. How many rooms in your house? Or if I wanted to ask how many cars do you have, kam sayyaratan indaka, or so on. You understand? So the point is, the noun that comes to signify the thing that's been counted or the thing that you're asking about after kam fulfills three conditions. It's mufrad, it's singular, it's nakira, indefinite, it's mansub. The technical name for it grammatically is tamyiz. We say this is tamyiz. Tamyizun. And tamyiz, the hukum of tamyiz is that it's mansub. Words that are tamyiz is mansub. What does tamyiz mean? It comes from mayyaza, to distinguish. Tamyiz, distinguishing. So this word is what distinguishes the essence of kam. What is kam referring to exactly? It's referring to ghurfa in this case, and it changes depending on the sentence. Okay, with mansub now, the mansub nouns, you'll find that usually the mansub nouns, if it was bayt, for example, baytun, when it has dhammatain, there's no additions. Baytun. When it has kasratain, there's no additions. When it has fathatain, there's usually an alif. There's an alif that's added after fathatain. You always see an alif after fathatain, except in 4 instances. There's 4 instances where the word ends with fathatain, but there's no alif added. These 4 exceptions are if there is ta marbuta. So if the word ends with ta marbuta, you never add alif after ta marbuta. So here, ghurfatan, sayyaratan, shajaratan, we don't add alif after ta marbuta. So that's the first exception. If the word ends with ta marbuta, you don't add an alif. The second exception is if the word ends with a hamza preceded by an alif. If the word ends with a hamza which is preceded by an alif, you don't add alif after the fathatain. So for example, sama'an. If you had sama'an, it would be sama'un, sama'in, sama'an without having to add an alif after the fathatain. That's the second exception. The third exception is if the word ends with a hamza written on top of an alif. If the word ends with a alif and it has a hamza on top, we add fathatain and there's no alif that comes after it. For example, if mubtada, we had the word mubtada, mubtada'un. Mubtada is written like this. So we say mubtada'un, mubtada'in, mubtada'an. If it was marfu' or if it was mansub, we'd add the fathatain without requiring an alif. This is the third exception. The fourth and final exception is if the noun itself ends with an alif. If the noun itself ends with an alif, and we have 2 types of alif, the alif like this and the alif like this. Whether it ends with this alif or this alif, you just put fathatain, and the fathatain is going to come on the letter before the alif. So this letter here is going to carry the fathatain. So we add the fathatain and there's no need to add another fathatain or another alif after it. So for example, fatan. Fatan means a young boy, right? Fatan, we do this. The ta here is what carries the fathatain. And the same for this type of alif. This word here. Asan. Asan means a stick. Fatan, young boy. So in both cases, we don't add an alif after the fathatain. So these are the 4 exceptions. After ta marbuta, after hamza which is preceded by alif, if a hamza is written on top of an alif, and if the word ends with an alif. 4 exceptions where we don't add alif after fathatain. Apart from these 4 exceptions, you always have to add an alif after the fathatain. Remember this, yeah? So that means we've explained everything related to the lesson. So let's read, inshallah, and then we can set the homework for next lesson. And this is a conversation between the teacher and some students. So we're going to begin reading. The teacher says, كم أخا لك يا محمد? كم أخا لك يا محمد? How many brothers do you have, O Muhammad? So remember, the word that comes after kam, the one that's being counted, comes with three conditions: mufrad, singular; nakira, indefinite; and mansub. And when it's mansub, we always add an alif. So akhun became akhan with the alif added, because it's not from those four exceptions. If those exceptions come, then we don't need to add alif. Kam akhan laka ya Muhammadu? How many brothers do you have, O Muhammad? Muhammad says, Li akhun wahidun. I have one brother. The al-mudarris says, Wa kam ukhtan laka? And how many sisters do you have? Wa kam ukhtan laka? And how many sisters do you have? The same thing. Akhan, ukhtan. Both are nakira, both are mufrad, both are mansub. And when they are mansub, they both have a alif. Muhammad says, Li ukhtani. Li ukhtani. I have two sisters. Ukhtani, this is the first muthanna noun that's come in this book. The first ju noun. And here we have jar wa majur. Shibhu jumla, khabar muqaddam. This phrase is the khabar. And ukhtani is the mubtada muakhar. So this is marfu'. That's why he's added the alif and noon, not the ya and noon, because this signifies mubtada. It's marfu'. Li ukhtani. I have two sisters. This word is marfu', not majroor. We don't look at the noon and say that the noon has a kasra, so it's majroor. No. This is marfu'. And the son of it marfu' is the alif. The alif is what's representing that or showing that this word is marfu'. Li ukhtani. I have two sisters. The mudarris says, Kam ajalatan liddarrajati ya hamidu? How many wheels? In English, when you're asking how much or how many things there are, you use the plural. You use the plural nouns. In Arabic, we said that this noun is nakira, and it's mufrad, and it's mansub. So this noun, we use the singular form. But when you translate to English, we say wheels, sisters, brothers. Although the word is mufrad. How many brother? Akh is brother. Ukht is sister. Ajala is a wheel, one wheel. But when you translate into English, you have to say wheels, sisters. How many sisters? How many brothers? Okay, remember that. So, kam ajalatan, how many wheels? Liddarrajati, does a bike have? Ya Hamidu, O Hamid. Hamid says, Laha ajalatani. Laha, it has ajalatani. It has two wheels. Laha ajalatani. This is jar wa majur. Shib juma khabar muqaddam. Ajalatani. This is our mubtada muakhar. And notice how this is mansub, but there's no alif added, because this is ta marbuta. When the word ends with ta marbuta and is mansub, there's no alif that's added. It's from the exceptions. So here we have la, and the muttasil version of here is ha, baytuha, laha, ajalatani. It has. Yani going back to the bike, because it's feminine, darraja. Laha ajalatani, it has two wheels. Mudarris asks, Kam عيدا في السنة يا زكريا? كم عيدا, how many Eids, festivals, في السنة, in a year, how many festivals in a year, O Zakaria? Zakaria says, في السنة عيدان, in a year there are عيدان, two Eids. عيد, عيدان, two Eids. جار ومجرور خبر مقدم, عيدان مبتدا مؤخر. So the marfu' version was used. في السنة عيدان, in a year there's two Eids. Huma, and the two of them are. This is the dhamir muthanna lil-ghaib that we mentioned. Remember, huma, they are, the two Eids are Eidul Fitri. Eidul Fitr is the first one, and Eidu wa Eidul Adha, and Eidul Adha. Eidul Fitr is the one after Ramadan, and Eidul Adha is on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. The 10th of Dhul Hijjah, and this is the 1st of Shawwal. So we have 2 Eids. These are the yearly Eids. And then we have a weekly Eid, which is Yawmul Jum'ah. Yawmul Jum'ah is also an Eid, but it is weekly. Al-Mudarris says, Ya Ibrahimu, O Ibrahim, Abuka tajirun kabirun. Your father is a big merchant. He should have said Allahumma barik or words to that extent. Abuka tajirun kabirun. Your father is a big merchant. Kam matjaran indahu. How many places of trading does he have? Like shops or businesses. How many businesses does he have? Ibrahim says, and notice how the alif was added here. Matjaran. The fathatain should be on the ra, not on the alif. Ibrahim says, Indahu matjarani kabirani. He has 2 big businesses or places of trading. And notice how this is na'at man'ut. The na'at must match the man'ut in number. So if it's muthanna, this is also going to be muthanna. And both of them are marfu'. The sign of ibn marfu' is alif and alif. Matjarani kabirani. Both nakira. And both mudhakkar. Indahu matjarani kabirani. He has 2 big businesses. Al-Mudarris, كم نافذة في غرفتك يا إسماعيل. كم نافذة. How many windows. في غرفتك. In your room, O Ismail. How many windows do you have in your room? Ismail says, فيها. In it, يعني the غرفة is feminine. فيها. In it. نافذتان. There are 2 windows. In it, there are 2 windows. نافذتان. 2 windows. Mudarris asks, لمن هذان الدفتران. To whom belong these 2 notebooks? هذان الدفتران. These 2 notebooks. هذان اسم الإشارة للمثنى. Remember, for قريب. هذان الدفتران. To whom belong these 2 notebooks? Ali says, هما لي. The 2 of them, they belong to me. هما لي. They belong to me. The Mudarris says, لمن هاتان المسطرتان. To whom belong these 2 rulers? Al-mistaratu is a ruler. Mistaratani, 2 rulers. And this, if it was written in the singular form, the ta would be ta marbuta. So we have hatani now, the feminine of hadani. Hatani is these 2 feminine things you're pointing to, and they are rulers. Close. To whom belong these 2 rulers? Yunus says, Huma li. Huma li. So he used huma for mistaratani and huma for daftarani. This is mudhakkar, this is mu'annath. Showing that huma is for 2. For 2 things, whether they are mudhakkar or mu'annath. So hopefully this lesson has been understood. So we're going to set the homework inshallah. تمارين exercises. أجب عن الأسئلة الآتية مستعملا المثنى. Answer the following questions using the muthanna. So you need to answer these questions and you need to use the muthanna forms for the answers. Here in the notes it mentions al-akh muthannatu akhawani. Muthannahu, this should be muthannahu, not muthannatu. Al-akhu, the word akh, its muthanna is akhawani. There's a waw that comes. So you don't say akhani. You don't add alif and noon to akh straight away. You add a waw. And the reason why you add a waw is because the words in the Arabic language, the nouns, the minimum number in a noun is 3. There are 3 words. So if ever you come across a word that has 2 letters, like yadun, damun, akhun, that means that a 3rd letter is missing. Something has happened to the 3rd letter. So this is why when you go to the muthanna form, the 3rd letter that was missing comes back now. So the 3rd letter has come back now. Akhun, the 3rd letter that was missing was a waw. So we say akhawani, akhawani. Sometimes when you go to the muthanna forms or the plural forms, the missing letter comes back, like in this case. So we need to answer these questions using the muthanna in the answer. Then we have a iqra waktub exercise, reading and writing. Then after that it says اقرأ الأمثلة الآتية ثم ضع في الفراغ فيما يلي تمييزا لكم واضبط آخره. Read the following examples, then place in the empty space in that which follows تمييزا. A تمييز for كم. واضبط أواخره. You can say واضبط or واضبط آخره with the correct vowelization of the endings. So this is to practice using the تمييز and applying those three rules that we mentioned. So the example says كم أختا لك كم أختا كم قلما عندك كم سيارة في الجامعة. So you need to place suitable تمييزes in the empty spaces. حول المبتدأ في كل من الجمل الآتية إلى مثنى. Change the مبتدأ in all of the following sentences into the مثنى. So changing the مبتدأ into مثنى is going to affect the خبر also, because the مبتدأ and the خبر, if the خبر is one worded, match in gender and number. So if it becomes مثنى, the خبر is also going to become مثنى. Then we have اقرأ الكلمات الآتية. Read the following words واكتبها مع ضبط أواخرها, and write them down with the correct vowelization of the endings. طيب, so this is related to the مثنى. Are you going to say كالبانو, كالباني, كالبانا? How are you going to read it? We explained how we create the مثنى and the حركة of the noon. So the same thing. Here, ثني الكلمات الآتية. Make the following words مثنى. So you need to make the following words مثنى, and I believe that's the end of the lesson. Then we have the new words. الكلمات الجديدة, the new words. كم means how much or how many. العيد is festival. الحي, حي is district, neighborhood. أحياء is the plural. الركعة is a unit of a prayer. ركعات is the plural. العجلة is a wheel. عجلات is plural. الريال is currency in some of the Arab countries like Saudi and so on. المسطرة is ruler. مساطر, مفاعل is the plural. It's ممنوع من الصرف because it comes on the wazn of مفاعل, just like دفاتر, فنادق, and so on. بارك الله فيكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.